Hey everyone, I'm back, Spaniard here with another movie review for everyone. I'm super excited about this one because it actually turned out to be a very, very pleasant surprise. So let's get right into it. For those watching the video version, here is my movie ticket stub to show that I actually did go and watch the movie. Mortal Engines is what I'm reviewing here. For those on the podcast, you just have to believe me. So, let's get right down to it. So the story of this series is actually based off a novel, Mortal Engine. So there are a few books in the series. This one is to take place at the very beginning. So it's focused around the main character called Esther, right? So this woman has a huge, grotesque scar across the face, which I love. It makes a different feel for characters moving forward because normally we see, I don't want to use the word disfigured, but, let's just say non-perfect characters as villains. So to see one here as more of a uprising brings a good flair. And I know a lot of those who have read the novel series. I have not, so I'll have to say I went in this not knowing. But I was very intrigued, especially by the fan base of this series. So but they were actually very impressed. At first, they were a little scared because when they first showed the original teaser, didn't have any type of scarring. It was just covered up. But when they showed it, they said it was good. Maybe not as detailed in the book series, but better than what most expected. Um, so in this, it's a post-apocalyptic world, right? And now pretty much, it's very deserted. These huge cities are now literally on top of these, well, like motorized vehicles. So pretty much an entire town is on it. And I have to say, visually, the movie is astonishing. Like, it just looks so damn good. And you'll be pleasantly surprised by how good everything looks, especially when you know it's heavily CGI'd. It makes other movies that do the CGI with the background show them up pretty much. Say, hey, this is how it should be done to make it at least look like they are there, whereas they really stand out in some of those other types of movies. So setting wise, era wise, being in the future and, everything is pretty much deserted of what had happened in the future. It looks amazing. So, but in the story, you follow this character, Esther, and she is trying to avenge her mother from this man called Thaddeus, who is played by Hugo Weaving. And he is pretty much like the second ruler of the city London, which London in this series is pretty much like the overall head honcho. They have the biggest engine, they have the biggest city, they have all this military style, effects, and it's really cool. I really like the way they did it. Actually, if you're a gamer, when I was watching the entire movie, it really felt like a BioShock, more so a BioShock Infinite feel, where they're, in the city where it's up higher and they have kind of like this, political kind of scheme of how things should run. And I had a very BioShock vibe, so it was really cool because I'm a big fan of BioShock. So but overall, a lot of action that I was not expecting in this movie. From beginning to end, action throughout. I thought it was going to be a bit more dramatic and tease. Like, I thought there would be some really cool scenes, but a lot of great action. I would have to give it that. Acting wise, I did like the main character. So again, Esther is played by Hera Hilmar. Personally, I don't really know the actress that well, but I felt for the part that was portrayed here, felt like it was really well. I will say, however, there are times, because she is mainly focused with Robert Sheehan, who portrays Tom in the series. Who Tom is an uprising, archaeologist, right? He digs up old kind of, is a philosopher of sorts. He likes the old, which is pretty much our technology now, to find new sources, and he works at a museum. So he ends up being following in the shadows of Esther because of stuff that we won't spoil for you. Anyways, their chemistry feels very off and on. Sometimes I feel it hits right on the mark, and then sometimes I feel like, what is going on? But overall, I feel the acting was done well. My favorite character was actually Shrike. It's kind of like this robotic, kind of like zombie. It's pretty much like a Frankenstein kind of creature, and I really like the way it was designed. I actually want to read the series just to read a bit more into how this character is actually developed, because it felt like there was a lot of backstory. Which brings me to my only backlash of the movie. The story 100% feels rushed. The ending is very like straightforward and done, which that's when everything is rushed. And I felt like we really didn't get to see some of the other characters develop where they needed to before their time. So hopefully it does lead into sequels, and there are other books. So I'm very much hoping that there will be more upcoming. Score-wise, I couldn't really find a good section there, but as far as the score goes, it's very action-packed, very heavy. It's very chase-like. So the orchestra in it feels very like, you're being chased all the time. It's very suspenseful, and it fits very, very well with the overall theme of the movie. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I will say it was a bigger surprise than I thought it was going to be. I'm giving it 3 out of 4 stars. So if you are looking for an action type movie, I definitely would say, hey, like, this is very different than anything that I've seen. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if there will be more. At least if there isn't, I'm really excited to read the series because I love reading. So but 3 out of 4 I feel is good. The story for me just felt like I was like, okay, well, what's happening here and why? And then when it ends, I'm like, all right, well, I guess it ended, so I'll take it, but I kind of wanted to know a bit more before it did. So the only flaw I feel is that because of the timing with all these other movies coming out, the new Spider-Man movie came out, you have Aquaman and Bumblebee here now that are very high rated, so we'll see how it fits. But if you want to go see an action-packed, I highly, highly recommend it. For those who don't want to hear my Geek Out moment, which can contain spoilers, you can go ahead and head in here. Again, thank you all so much for supporting our podcast and the movie reviews. Everything is being updated. We are on episode 33 this week, our Christmas edition, and it will be coming out soon. So thank you so much. Again, you can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, and more. All right, so for those of you who decided to stay, this is my Geek Out moment, right? So this is where I get to tell you about, hey, this was my favorite part of the movie and why. Honestly, there were a lot of favorite parts for me just because, as I stated, the action parts in this movie were just fantastic. I really enjoyed it. They had a very suspenseful and kind of like chase feel, as I was discussing earlier in regards to the score. So for me, actually, the very first scene, which is almost entirely portrayed in the trailer, but just seeing the full effect of everything was really cool. So is Esther, she's actually wanting to get on to London to find Thaddeus, right? Because she wants to like get at this guy. So she actually targets what she feels is the weakest engine of this huge town. And it's so cool because the town just ends up separating by different like engines and vehicles. And it was just so cool to see how it all collaborates and closes. So once that happens, there's this huge chase scene. London, this huge big city, is just like revving its engines and chasing this very, very tiny like little motorized town. It's so cool. The entire sequence is awesome. It had a lot of suspense. The music was great. So again, I highly, highly recommend if you want to see something action-packed. This could be a great one. If not, if you want to wait for Redbox and just bump up your 7.1 or 7.2 sound system, then you'll be really enjoying this on there. So again, thank you all so much. Next reviews that will be upcoming will be Aquaman, Bumblebee, and Spider-Man Into the Universe. So tune into those both in the video form here or on our podcast at Geek Out. Thank you.